Hello everybody! So today's video is to demonstrate how I fabricate temporaries on implants. This same procedure that I will show you today, it can be used when you want to immediately provisionalize the implant the same day that the implant was placed, or if you want to put a temporary restoration in an implant that is already osseointegrated. So what do we need? First, a wax up of the missing tooth. It can be done with a wax or also a denture tooth, whatever you prefer. So when you have your wax up already done, what you need to do is duplicate the cast, as you can see here. And the reason you have to duplicate the cast is because I need you to have a sock down of the wax up, and also I need you to do a putty. And a putty will have an extra step that I will show you later, and I will explain to you why I do it. Now the prosthetic parts, the temporary cylinder. The temporary cylinder can be made of metal or PEEK material, which is, for some cases, more aesthetically pleasant. But I personally prefer metal ones because there is less chance that it will fracture. So we will be working today with a metal temporary cylinder. And I like to have always an analog of the implant so you can work better outside the mouth. So we will be working on tooth position number 9. Implant is already placed. The first step is to try in the temporary cylinder in the mouth. So at this moment, we will be evaluating the angulation of the implant. In this situation, it's an ideal situation, but in real life, it's not always like that. And that's why I prefer and I like to have a sock down. And the reason why is because you can evaluate the angulation of the implant and how much space do you have from the temporary cylinder to the buccal surface of your future temporary, because you want to have enough space for the material to be retentive enough and to be thick enough so it will not fracture. So in this case, it's an ideal situation. But imagine if the temporary cylinder will be sticking out, what we will be doing is we will have a high speed and I will be removing the buccal surface of this area, and I will leave only the palatal area of the temporary cylinder, and still will be strong enough because it's made of metal. Now that our temporary cylinder is adjusted properly, leaving the correct thickness for the temporary, then I go ahead, put my sock down on top of it, and I always try to mark where will be my access, basically where I will be doing using my screwdriver to unlock the temporary cylinder. And this is very important because a lot of other techniques you have to put something sticking out, and gets locked. So this is the way I do it because it's easier for the retrieval of the temporary cylinder after you put your temporary material. So the next step after we marked, I go in the mouth and I drill a hole to be sure that I will know my access for the retrieval of my temporary cylinder. So that's one of the purpose of the sock down. And this is the way it should look. And the next step, the putty. Very important step for this procedure and for any time that you're doing any temporary restorations. This is the trick that I always use and it works very well. So most important, you do a regular putty in your duplicate so you don't ruin your wax up. You cut everything very well at the cervical level of your future temporary. You try it back in the cast. You are sure that everything looks aligned. Then the next steps that I always like to do is to put a little bit of triad material around the putty. And the reason why I like to do this is because this will remove the chances that you will press a little bit harder in different areas, and then the aesthetics will be compromised. So this is a very nice and important step that I always use for any type of temporary restorations that I do. So after your temporary cylinder is adjusted, you already put your sock down, then you go ahead and try in your putty inside the mouth. It's always good to know that it's sitting down based on any other specific area, like the lateral here, the canine, here, and being sure that it's sitting down all the way down. So that's our next step. Time to fabricate the temporary. The next step is to place a little bit of cotton roll inside the axis of your temporary cylinder. Then when you have the cotton roll inside, I like to put a little bit of red wax in the axis. So the reason why I like to do that, so it's easier to access it after the temporary material is already placed in there. Next step, time to fabricate your temporary restoration. Evaluate the angulation of your other teeth. If you have like a big undercut, remove it with your burr, or apply also some Vaseline in the other teeth to avoid having difficulty removing the temporary cylinder with the temporary restoration. Next step, that you are sure that everything is well in the mouth, it's time to apply the temporary material in the putty. Why in the putty? Because the putty will give you better detail of your wax up. So we go ahead, we sit it down all the way down, not being stressed that anything will get locked, because we already pay attention on everything. We remove the excess, we're sure everything is sitting down properly, and we let it set. I personally like to use both materials, acrylic or pro temp or any composite base material. I like both. Whatever you feel comfortable with, that's what you will use. The material is set. Depending on what material that you use is the amount of time that you need to wait. So this is set, and I go ahead and I remove carefully my putty index, very carefully. Then, most probably, hopefully, everything will stay in place because you remove the undercuts, and the temporary cylinder has undercuts in order to retain the temporary material. So if you see here, the red wax shows in the lingual area, and also if it sometimes doesn't show, depending on the angulation of your implant, you can go ahead, put your sock down, and you are exactly sure where do you have to drill to access your temporary cylinder. So next step, to drill through the red wax to access the screw, right? So I drill it already. Now we get our screwdriver in the mouth, access it, engage the screw, and unscrew it. Sometimes can be a little bit, stressful to remove because you think it's gonna get stuck, but it won't. The instrument that I normally use is this gold handle. I love this gold handle. I have it in the lab, I have it in every single kit because it's a very good instrument to remove temporary restorations, and for this case it's very useful. So I go ahead, I try to wiggle it a little bit, move it buccal lingually just a little bit, and then you are able to remove it. This is the way it will look kind of when you remove it from the mouth. It's not done at all because it has excess material, has a little bit of void here. So I will show you how to finish it up. So I remove it from the mouth and I remove all the excess, just round out the edges, remove all the edges that you see. So when I take it out of the mouth, what I like to do is screw it down to the analog outside the mouth. I be sure it's clicked down, and then I screw it down. So then it's easier to work outside the mouth. So now it's time to give it the final shape to the temporary restoration. So this will depend on what material are you using. If you're using composite-based materials, you will use flowable composite. It's easier to work with. And if you are using acrylic, then you will use salt and pepper technique and add in these voids that you can see here. So we will start adding. The way I like to do is just fill all the voids that you see, over contour it, and then trim it down. So I fill all of the voids, and you can see here that ideally we should have concavity, and then where is the gingival level, it should be convex. Depending on the case, of course, then you have to put it in the mouth, see where do you want your gingival margin to be, and above that it should be concave.